Hello and welcome to 5-Minute Math. Today we are looking at the Algebra 1 concept of evaluating functions. This is standard A.12B in the great state of Texas, and we're using item number 27 of the 2016 released STAAR test. If you haven't done so already, please go ahead and take a moment to pause the video, work this problem out on your own, unpause it, and we will look at our answers together. So we have a given function here. We need to find the value of -8. There is no A, B, C, or D to choose from, so we'll need to figure this out on our own. Now, we've seen this for quite a while now. What does this mean, f of x, and why do we sometimes use that instead of where we normally say the y, right? Well, f of x is kind of shorthand for function of x, right? And we know that x is our independent variable. And so what we are trying to say when we say something is f of x is that it is a function. Now, remember, functions, we've learned to identify them in tables, on graphs. Functions are mathematical relationships where each input, remember the inputs are your independent variable, leads to only one output. So what you can't have is you can't have one x value getting you two separate y values when you evaluate it. So when we see a graph, right, we like to use the vertical line test. If you can draw vertical lines and it only touches the graph once, then you're good to go, because it means that each x leads to only one y. So all of this is wrapped up in this f of x. That just tells us that we are dealing with a function, and we can create a table of values, right? You can create a table of x and y values, and if you want, you can just kind of keep that f of x up there. It's still going to be the dependent variable there. And so when we see f of x and then we want to evaluate f of -8, well, that tells us something specifically. So what we're going to do is we're going to take our f of -8 and we're just going to substitute in. So it really is a nice way of all in one situation telling us exactly what we're wanting to do with this. We're wanting to evaluate -8 within this function. Whereas if we kept this as y equals, then we would have to have a separate line that says, all right, now x equals -8, evaluate that. So when you say f of 8, well, that just means we're going to substitute in that -8 for that x. And we're going to need our order of operations. So let's not forget that. We've been dealing with this since the 5th and 6th grade. And we can do all of this work, and if we mess this up, we'll end up with the wrong answer. And since this is not a multiple choice, we really need to be sure of this. All right, so most of you remember, please excuse my dear Aunt Sally. That's a good way to remember these 6 letters of PEMDAS. Now, one thing I always want to stress is that when we're looking at multiplication and division, they are inverse operations, and those two can be done in either order moving from left to right. Same with addition and subtraction. They're inverse operations, can be done in either order moving from left to right. So we're going to write it like this. F of -8 equals 6, 1 minus, and then I'll just put that -8 right there. Okay? So now we're going to deal with what's inside the parentheses. So inside that parentheses, really I've just got that minus. So f of -8 is going to equal 6. 1 minus -8 is going to end up being 1 plus 8. So now we need to evaluate that addition right there. So 6, 1 plus 8 makes 9. All right, so f of -8 is going to be 6 times 9, so that makes 54. And then you simply need to bubble this in. Make sure you just bubble in the correct numbers underneath, and you're good to go.